which is getting more and more closely interconnected, we have to learn to tolerate each other. We have to learn to put up with the fact that some people say things we don't like. We can only live together in that way. And if we are to live together and not die together, we must learn the kind of charity and kind of tolerance which is absolutely vital to the continuation of human life on this planet. And who wrote that again? Is that yes, Bertrand Russell. So people are back here. Of course, I'm the regular girl, Tanya.
I'm Kenny.
Yes, Kenny. Kenny's back.
And we have Sam.
And Sam.
I'm here.
Yeah.
And we have guests.
And we have guests. We definitely have guests. We have Mr. Tim Durand joining us. He's a journalist and he's also the owner of DNO. I guess a lot of people know Tim already, right?
Maybe.
Neither of these
Maybe.
gentlemen need
Oh my,
introduction.
stop that. That's what I'm saying. Like, stop pretending.
Everyone
Everybody
knows
knows Tim. And we have Mr. Severin McKenzie. I can barely see. Screen is blocking me. I want to see your face. You look the same. Been looking at you. We say in Trini, I've been macroing you on all those articles and stuff. I've never met you face to face. So I've been macroing you on articles. You look the same. You're not aging at all, Mr. McKenzie. Yes, so Mr. McKenzie is an architect and he's also the owner of Mac Services, right, Limited. So incorporated, sorry. So that's our two guests tonight. And we're going back, people, because I don't feel like we get to really we didn't get to touch on that topic properly last week. The topic about civility in discourse. I think we still get bulldozed with all these CBI questions. And I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there. We're not talking CBI tonight.
Thank you.
I had enough. Okay, let us change the topic. Yes, if you didn't get any answers to your questions, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe we'll go back there. Maybe, but tonight, no. We're talking about civility in discourse. So if you're calling, you have any questions, that is the topic. And we're sticking to that tonight. Yes? But before we get into it, Sam wanted to touch on something.
Yes, we
about the
wanted to
flights.
touch about the flight and something that I observed. And I just wanted, in the spirit of this same conversation, to kind of touch bases with it, because I was on the American airline flight that was scheduled to come in on Wednesday, and that flight was rescheduled to Thursday, we were told, because of weather. That's what the airline told us. I was actually seated on the airplane already. The pilots were in, and they were told that there was something with weather en route. Of course, being in the aviation business, having some background there, I have a lot of respect for the industry because it's very difficult. And when a pilot tells you that you shouldn't fly because of weather, accept it, because you're better late or not getting there today and getting there tomorrow than the pilot forcing his or her way. And you can't stop a plane and change a tire, or you can't stop and fix a problem. And landing and taking off are the most difficult parts of aviation, and certainly weather is a major cause for problems. Dominica, fortunately, unfortunately, we are the Whitey Kubuli. Tall is her body. With these tall mountains, it brings a lot of moisture. And when you have jets coming in, they need some visibility. Sometimes you're going to have that inconvenience. We've had it on Wednesday. We came in on Thursday. The flight also was rescheduled from Saturday because of weather.
So it was our weather that was bad?
Well, it was weather en route somewhere. Of course, I didn't get to ask the captain specifically, but by the time I got back here, I saw the rumor, and it had already started circulating that there was only 6 people on the flight, and that's why they canceled the flight, which is, again, speaking to this, it is just so sad. And the flight was virtually full coming down, and we even had some guests going up. It was virtually full going up, but some people just chose to try to start to undermine this flight. And Dominica, and I say Dominica because all of us are beneficiaries of that service. You have a number of Dominicans living here that choose to travel because they need to move up and down. We have Dominicans living abroad. They enjoy that flight so much. You have visitors coming in. They need that flight so much for tourism. And we need to appreciate. I mean, okay, so the flight isn't brand new again, but we can't, start to undermine this flight. We really need to value certain things, and the ability to get to Dominica is important. So I would just encourage people not to be tempted to use that flight as a kind of political football, sort of, it's too important for us. Tourism let us support the flight. It's not that big a deal in the scheme of things, but in reality, you just want to make sure that it's one little chip that starts to erode things and we don't start undermining this flight. So I just wanted to touch on this flight. Tanya, why are you laughing? I thought you were
That's
going to
what I
be
just
nice to
said.
me
You're looking
this
like you're
year.
going to put yourself in problems. Now they're going to say, oh, you have something going on with that flight. You're making our money there too.
I
That's
do have
why you're
something.
laughing.
I do have something going on, and I'm making a money there too. And we all are making a money there too. Sometimes we don't understand the importance of these things, but this is important when we all have situations where we need to travel back and forth.
I agree.
So we all need to be serious and mature about this. And folks, it's not just American airline. If you're gonna go on an airplane and the pilot in command says, I can't fly for this, accept it.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, the alternative to that may not be something favorable. I was in Los Angeles when Kobe Bryant, got on that helicopter and they insisted on flying in bad weather, and you saw what happened. So if the pilot says we have a weather or equipment or whatever it is, when you're traveling, you have to leave a little room for disappointment. Okay?
That takes us into the topic,
Yeah, there you go.
That takes us into civility in discourse. Yes, who's going to lead us off? Or do I just jump in with my crazy questions? Mr.
Jump.
Durant, you're there?
Right here. You can't
Can I
see
jump in?
Yeah, maybe Tim could maybe start off. Mr. Durant, she called it. I have to call you that formally
Yeah,
because
I like
you're
how
on
that
radio,
sounds.
and I have to call you Mr. Durant. But is Tim, and I do. This goes both Kenya and I know these two gentlemen very well, and which is why they graciously accepted our invitation to come on to talk about this topic. And they have different
Yeah.
backgrounds. Certainly, Severin is a member of this new organization, NJAM, and I think they launched last week, Sev, and we can maybe touch on that too, because they came out and sort of disclose who they were and what they're doing, and maybe he can kind of give us a little background on who they are and what they intend to achieve, and then I guess even before that, Tim can just talk on the topic, because Tim is one of those people that everyone knows in Dominica.
Yeah.
He's very professional, and he's a man with deep intellect and insight. And I think on this topic, his experience in journalism, and he's really embodied what we're talking about, civility. And I'm not just saying that because Tim
He's embodied it. you're
he
saying.
embodies civility. I don't think anybody can honestly say that Tim has been rude to them, or I don't see it, Tim. Maybe it's just me. But I think he can speak on that because he's been running a pretty strict media service, and he can sort of lead off by talking about that topic. How do we disagree, Tim, and yet remain civil with each other?
How do we agree to disagree?
Well, thank you guys for having me. Good evening, Tanya. I think that's the name.
Yes.
I have heard about you. I don't recall ever meeting you. Perhaps I have, but I understand you worked with Carrie FM at one time.
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry to be interviewing you, but that's the journalist.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Ask him more questions, Tim.
But no, I wanted to say.
You want to know where I leave to? Oh, Lord.
I wanted to say that I've listened to some of the programs and I was impressed with the way Tanya has moderated. She's basically kept you guys on track in terms of the purpose of the program,
You
which
fancy
is
him?
to educate people, to inform them, to give them the information that you feel that they're lacking with regard to the topics that you have been discussing. So I just want to big her up, in that regard, and to see her for the first time. Well, I guess I'm not sure I've met her in person. It would be kind of strange though, Sam, for you and Kenny to start referring to me as Mr. Durant right now. That would be a big deviation, from the sort of relationship that we've had. I also want to say hi to Severin, good friend of mine as well. So all in all, I'm glad to be here, and I'm hoping to be able to contribute meaningfully to tonight's discussion. I thought, though, that the topic would have been looked at in a particular context, but apparently there is no context tonight. We're just looking at civility and
Do you want us to
discourse.
apply? Do you want
I
us
beg your
to
pardon?
apply- Do you want us to apply a context?
Well, I mean, it's a topic that can be discussed on its own, but a particular the reason I say this is because the context within which you're having that discourse, a discussion, is important with regard to how people react to the information that you present to them. Okay, so that the point I guess I want to make here is, okay, Tanya said we're not talking CBI, fine. I'm not going to dwell very long on that. But if, for example, many of the discussions that you've had so far have had to do with the CBI, if not all of them, right? And if you come to people presenting information to them on a particular issue that is of concern and interest to them, the first thing I think they're looking for from someone who has, expressed the intention of providing information that will enlighten them on a particular topic is honesty. So that in discourse, there must be, for one to be able to agree to disagree civilly, then there must be honesty. Honesty must be the premise on which that discussion is based, on which you're presenting that information. So that if you come to me and with the intention of educating me, of providing some clarification on information that I have, which you think is inaccurate, then I expect that the information that you're going to present to me will be honest.
Right.
And if you begin by presenting information to me that I think, okay, is not honest, is not true, is not factual, or at least the intent, that you're coming with it basically to push down your own, agenda and your own information down my throat, then my reaction initially is going to be antagonistic. And therefore, I think we're off to a bad start. So I would say the first thing in ensuring that discourse remains civil, that people can understand, those involved, that look, we're here to honestly discuss a subject matter, a topic of interest to us. We have to begin on the premise, on the matter of honesty. That must be the basis to begin the discussion in the first place.
Tim, I'm not going to interrupt you, but I just want a point of clarification, because again, in today's world where you have opinions that really drive things, people often base their perception of honesty based on an opinion that is sometimes wrong. For instance, I just gave the example of the flight. Someone said that there's only 6 people that came on the flight. That's why American decided to cancel the flight, and it had nothing to do with weather. And before too long, that had become the accepted fact.
Yep.
Okay? And so no one's talking about questioning whether 6 people were on the flight or the flight was full. Or the basis now is the flight is not economically viable because it's only 6 people, and that becomes a foundational fact. And so honesty is something, and I fully agree with you, we cannot be having a conversation if we don't understand basic language. We can't have a conversation if the facts, we do not have clear and facts that we can agree on. But sometimes even before those facts are established, I say that there are opinions that drive the facts, misinformation driving things. And what we find is the basis that a lot of people, they have formed the opinions from is not from facts, and they don't know it. So when you come and you present an alternative and they've been hearing misinformation all along, then we have that situation.
So both Tim and Samuel, everyone, there is a context that we can apply, and I think Tim will understand that. Let Sevra come in a little bit, which is that the media, which you've kind of referred to, media has changed. So in the past, media was prescriptive. You had the in Dominica's context, for example, you had the Chronicle, you had the Sun, other newspapers, and an article would be written, and that would be prescriptive in that the article would be circulated and people would read the story and then interpret that as the facts and use that as the basis of discussion. You, Tim, have helped change the scene of media in Dominica, but it's still changing, and it's actually, I would argue, it's moved on from there, because at the time that DNO came along, you had a website. You have the website Dominican News Online, and people would go to it, and it started a new phenomenon of people being able to comment on an article, often anonymously, and to put their views to what was a perceived story, but also to put their own notions, their opinions in the public domain. Now it's gone further. Now it's total disruption. And that disruption isn't just in Dominica. It's globally, where social media, the story actually gets set often by the disruption. So in social media, the story gets formed almost at the same time that you're reporting on it or someone else is. And if you look at another media that has become very popular, Emo News, a lot of the content for Emo News is coming from ordinary people. So it's a picture, a video, and then it's being discussed as an opinion by everyone. So all of that has shaped the ability to be civil about a topic, because in many cases, the people who are often being talked about are defending the story rather than originating it. And so here Sam is on the flight coming in and having to defend something that in real terms, he is one of the few people who knows what happened because he was on the flight. But now he's reacting. And because of who may or may not like Sam, that story gets interpreted based on that information. So people will say, well, you know what? I'm sure it was 6 people because Sam is lying.
Or like Tanya said, he's benefiting from the flight. So
Yes.
he's defending.
So it's moved on from there. And that then creates a whole new discussion about how does news now get generated? How do stories get generated? And how do you communicate to people about a topic? Because now we become so based around the liking, the kind of like culture.
But Kenny, who is to say that the newspaper Sun was writing facts? Who is to say that?
That's why I said it was prescriptive.
Okay.
Several, please, I'm coming.
I just want to saying. We're not hearing.
You're on
Mr.
mute.
Severin.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think you're on mute. Try and put on mute. Yeah.
I was saying, I suspect these 2 fellas you have there with you, Tanya, Malakase, if you don't put a chain on their tongue, they're going to take the whole program and we are going to say nothing. Yeah?
I guess you were listening to the other shows.
Pardon?
I'm sure you were listening to the other shows. Yes.
Yeah, these fellas, you have to hold them. You have to tie the tongue, man. The tongue too long. Let me say good evening to you, Tanya. Maybe I just heard of you, and I'm seeing you from the distance virtually for the first time, really.
Oh. Yeah.
And I just heard last week that you have been here for quite some time. I don't know. Maybe you do not walk the streets like Sam and those guys.
Yeah. Actually, I'm more like Kenny. Very private.
All
Quiet.
right. Yeah. So good evening to everybody. Good evening to your team. I think they have brought us. They said they brought us on the other side. Now, first of all, I don't like that name at all. I do not like that name, and I would advise all you fellas to change this name for that program as quickly as possible while it's still taking root. Because
What should we name it, by the way? What should we name it?
Just name it the truth, man. Say when
Okay, thank you.
just say you come to
That's
speak
what's
the
problem.
truth, that there is no alternative facts.
I
Because
can take
there
the
is.
stairs. I think the
Yeah.
other side gives us stairs. The hard cut eye and thing in the road when we leave.
Yeah, and
We'll get stone. It's okay.
when I told the guy that I was going, when you called me, Sam, I was in fact taking some measurements on a building for some client, and I told him I'm going on Sam Raphael's program. He said, "Oh, the prodigal son has come back home." I said, "Who is the prodigal son?" He said, "You." I said, "How you been?" He said, "You going on the other side." I said, "Well, I'm not on any side." You understand? I not on any side. I'm in truth, and that's why I guess both sides have me on the level of the prodigal son, because I maybe helped to destroy one and I abandoned the other. So I'm not a well-loved person when it comes to the sides business. So, but I believe that one of the things that maybe you all should pursue, that a program like this should not be only on one side. You should be looking at having it on the other radio programs like a simulcast, and let's try to bring the civility together here. All sides can listen. Because whereas I say I'm not on any side, I know that the sides exist, but I choose not to align myself with any side. So I just want to take it from that point of view, that I may not be perceived to be in the middle, not having any side, but I could tell you the person who I am is not one that is on any side. And I have gotten myself into trouble on many occasions when I speak out my mind to say wrong is wrong, no matter who is doing it. In fact, just a few months ago, when the Prime Minister engaged Sir Dennis Byron as a consultant on the electoral reform process, and Sir Dennis Byron wrote, I was at the time president of the Dominica Business Forum, Inc., and he wrote to us asking for an audience. I immediately responded and said, oh yeah, you're welcome. And then we took the initiative to engage him in a public consultation. And I could tell you, I took licks for just this, but I had to stand my ground, because I thought that if the government is engaging Sir Byron on electoral reform, it is something that, since the people cannot do it, it's something that we should take advantage of the opportunity to try to engage him and try to see how we can get the whole question of electoral reform resolved once and for all. So I just wanted to open with these few words, but I would really like if you could pursue the possibility of having a program like this on the other radio stations, where all sides could actually listen to both sides of the conversation, and people could be more informed, because I believe this is where the whole civility in the country is going to the dumps. That you have some people who are glued to one side, listening to the radio, to all the nonsense that's going on one side, and have no intention to listen to the other side. And it wasn't this way. Just a few years ago, it wasn't this way. Maybe we have too many radio stations now. But when there was only DBS radio to listen to, everybody had to listen to radio. And the other thing about it is that...
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's really civility. If I choose to listen to something on only one side, that's my choice. And you should respect that. If I don't want to listen to Q95 today, I don't have to. And if I feel to listen to Kyrie alone, that's what I will do. I think I think the problem stems when I decide to tell you this is what I'm doing, and you have an issue with it. You feel to disrespect me because I choose to do it. So I don't think the problem is choosing a side. I definitely don't think it's. I think it's us respecting people's choices. You know what I mean? Just not really, well, agreeing to disagree, as Sam would say. I don't agree with you choosing.
It seems to me, though.
Tanya, what I would say, there is, there has been a paradigm shift in information dissemination in the country. And you are listening to the news in the media, and you're getting one slant of the news on one side.
Okay.
And this is what I think that is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I believe, some raised this question about the American Airlines flight coming in. I mean, I knew nothing about it. I mean, this is news to me, all what some said. But I believe that given the environment that we live in, we have to, there are certain things that have to be done, that the persons who prepare, persons have to take the initiative to inform the nation of certain things and to give them the facts as the official information coming in But if people do not get information from the source that is supposed to bring the information out, then this is where you start getting people making all types of speculations. And then social media is not helpful to the cause because, as soon as one person put it out, somebody find it sexy and then they throw it into a chat and it reaches 500 people in one click.
Right. Well, I want to.
Tim was going to say something.
Tim, please.
Actually, that's why I want to ask Tim a question on that. Now that we've spoken about media and their responsibility to provide the information, I'm wondering, and Severin is talking about that breakdown in information and dissemination of factual information covering both sides. Do you think that that breakdown is really threatening our democracy?
Absolutely. And here's what I think is the bigger problem in that we have this paradigm shift, as Severin put it, and then Kenny earlier on addressed this social media takeover, where information basically has gone out of control of mainstream media, so that you in disseminating information, mainstream media has to be mindful of the fact that social media is going to get that information out there first, and perhaps inaccurately, so that we in the mainstream media, we know we're going to be second, but what we are hoping we can do is when we come out with the information, that it will be wholesome. It will be accurate. It will contain all of the necessary elements. But one of the problems we face in this country, and it is not a problem that exists only today, it is something that has been with us for a long time in our political system. And that is, it is difficult sometimes to get the information from the appropriate sources, so that you get the news, it's a breaking news, something has happened, and you want to check with the authorities to confirm. Social media don't care about that. They put it out already. You understand? Right? So in other words, the latest thing was Dr. McIntyre had suffered 2 strokes, right? And he was in Jamaica seeking medical attention. That's all over social media. Now, for 2 or 3 days, we're trying back here to get that information confirmed with no response at all, until maybe yesterday, a few days later, after I called someone directly associated with the office of the Prime Minister, that we actually got a release on that. So what has happened in the meantime is that information has proliferated. Everybody who would like to believe that Dr. McIntyre is sick because it's it's a political significance to them, have taken that thing and run with it. Mm-hmm. And we are there trying to get the facts out, and it is taking us a long time. And this is just one example. So the point is, our job, I think, is a bit too difficult in the mainstream media to be able to get accurate information out there from the appropriate authoritative sources. And when the parties are in opposition, before they take over the mantle of government, they promise you, manna from heaven as far as information is concerned. When we get there, we're going to be transparent. We're going to give you all the information that you need when you need it. We'll have so many news conferences per month, And when they get there, it doesn't take very long, for the barriers to start going up, for the difficulties to start emerging with regard to obtaining information. So yes, Tanya, when this happens, then it means that we are not able to get accurate information out to our readers, our listeners, our viewers in a timely manner, and that begins to affect the democratic process.
That's very true, Tim, but it's not a Dominican problem.
I did say that. Yeah, it isn't just Dominican.
It's a global problem. I'll give you an example of something that actually I had interest in as a story, which was, there was a story with regards to the China and Uganda and the Ugandan airport. That story went halfway around the globe and back before the Chinese and Ugandan government put out a release to state that it wasn't true. Same with this story about the Sri Lankan port and China. And the truth is, the people who wanted to believe that had already got that in the media, because social media, as I said, is now is now really disruptive. And so therefore, the official story no longer mattered. And I think, Tim, that you're right, that it is difficult to get information only because the official sources right now really are not agile enough anywhere in the world. And that is why, as I mentioned before on the last program, that's why Emmanuel Macron's wife had to come out in the public domain and threaten lawsuits about rumors that she was born a man, which to us here sounds extraordinary, but it's in an election campaign when a right-wing group will actually propagating that. The numbers, given the voting demographics of France, the numbers are so tiny in these presidential runoffs that something like that can gather steam. But the question that I have for everyone here is, how do you get to a point where there is trust in what is put forward? Because it's about trust on both sides. I would ask Tim, if, for example, DNO had to require that everyone made their comments under their names or under their official name and an email address, how many comments would be made? Because the ability to be anonymous and to be nasty is related.
You're probably right, Kenny, but we
I
But
still
we're
think
not-
your ability to be nasty and to be out there with your name is getting very popular too. There are people who just don't care now. I'm gonna give you a piece of my mind, and you know who I am, and I don't care.
Yeah, true.
But apart from that, Kenny, I mean, there's no way we're going to be able to enforce a policy such as this, to have people write on the, you have to have a process in place to verify that this is the person, get a birth certificate and that kind of thing, As a matter of fact, today we had a case where someone wrote a comment, submitted a comment under the name of a well-known local politician, top of the line,
These are my favorites,
and that person actually contacted us, right? But, I mean, we had no way of knowing. I mean, obviously, it's not a very popular name in Dominica, right? But at the same time, we can't assume that that person doesn't have the same name, as that particular politician. Thankfully, the comment itself was not very controversial, right? It was a little mischievous, but not controversial. And so, this happens, But yeah.
But Tim, I'm going back to what Kenny said because I want to take a break, but this one getting juicy. Trust. Because I keep thinking to myself, I mean, I could make a statement and I know it to be truthful, but because it may trigger you, in a particular kind of way, probably it brings some type of awareness, that you don't want to accept or believe. You may consider my statement to be very, incivil. I might be being rude to you, disrespectful to you because I say, red is blue and blue is red.
Yeah,
You understand? So I feel like even if we come with the facts, like I just said, who's to tell me that Sun was writing facts when they was putting out their stories? I don't have to believe his facts.
Yeah, and I totally agree, Tanya, because so, I mean, how do we define civility? In that case, right? I mean, I mean, and we didn't do that at the beginning, and perhaps we should have.
We did last
come
week.
to this discussion with a definition, of civility, because my interpretation is not that, because we can disagree. We have agreed that we can disagree on issues, on they have different opinions on various things, but I would imagine that when we talk about civil discussion or civil discourse, we're talking about people perhaps not insulting each other, being able to disagree forcefully, yes, if you have to, but staying away from attacking, offending,
right.
Insulting, each other. I think that's what we're probably talking about. If I'm wrong, Sam, you can probably correct me because you're the
I'm
one who
Googling now.
Yes.
Yeah, I like to Google.
I think that's I think that's accurate, Tim. The reality is that we have to disagree even on facts and still maintain civility. And I'll touch on that. Seven made an interesting point that he's a man of truth. I don't know any of us that isn't. You see, everyone perceives themselves to be a person of truth, as far as I know. You have people who kill people in the name of God because they firmly believe in what they believe to be true.
You're the unbeliever.
Oh my God, you serious?
No. I'm saying there are religions now and movements.
You see I just look at you?
That's all right. There are we know, we've seen in the world that we live in, we have this global terrorism thing that's all based on religion. A person is a jihadist and they believe in their strict interpretation of the Quran. Let's just be specific. I'm not picking on Muslims because I have a high level of respect for Muslims in Islam. But they're so fervent in that belief. And you being a Christian, or you having some, even within Christianity, some other denomination, what you believe is the truth. And what someone else believes is not true. So I think when we talk about truth, Sev, we have to be very cautious. Truth is truth, and I think truth is absolute. But sometimes we interpret opinions as absolute opinions and as truth. And based on that, we form that's where we are. And that's okay. But notwithstanding that, could we be a Muslim and still befriend a Christian? Or could we be a supporter of an opposition or the government and befriend and have good relations and have civil discourse and agree on certain things and agree to disagree with people who are on the other side of what we fervently believe is to be true, and maintain some level of civility? So for me, that's where the civility comes in. That to be where I fervently disagree with Kenny, we don't agree on these things, yet we can maintain some kind of relationship and
I
civility.
think we have to go to a break, but when we come back, I want to take that, what Sam said, and take it up with both in Severus in particular and Tim about Sir Dennis Byron.
All
I
right.
think we need to speak about it.
Okay, people, just keep it locked right here to the other side. We'll be right back after this.
When you call someone who points out to you,
It's now 6:44 p.m. right here on the beautiful Isle of Dominica. You're locked into Q95, and it is The Other Side. My name is Tanya. I have Kenneth Green and Sam Raphael, and our special guest, Tim Durant, and Mr. Let me make sure I get the name right. Sevra Mackenzie. Am I saying it right? Is it Sevra? Am I supposed to put that kind of a stress, that kind of a French, or is it just Severin?
Severin.
Severin. Okay.
Okay.
Still a sexy name, you know.
Why?
You could take it if you want, you know.
Well, we're talking about civility in public discourse. I can help myself.
Somehow sexy and Severin and the two that I had.
Tim, don't
The
feel left
two
out.
words
You know.
that I was
Sexy
is one
Seven,
thing.
man, yeah?
Going, Tim, the way you talking to Seven, Tim shifting on his chair. Hard.
Don't feel left out, Tim. That's a sexy name too.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up something, and that is about, it's something again that comes from the past and a change now. there was some holy grail, so to speak. I'm not saying it was totally good, but there was a level of respect for specific figures who were doing specific tasks. You could say it doctors, you could say judges, and in the case of Sir Dennis Byron, I saw a comment recently from one of the members of NJAM with regards to
Maybe Sev. Well, when you finish, Sev can respond.
So when Sir Dennis Byron was appointed to do the electoral reform report, I actually didn't know Sir Dennis Byron. I mean, I read up about him, but previously it was more I knew about people like Justice Saunders, obviously our own Dr. Liverpool. And others. But then I decided I was going to read up on Sir Dennis Byron. And in my opinion, there are certain people in the Caribbean, like for me, my holy grail was Sir Arthur Lewis, from St. Lucia, the St. Lucian Nobel laureate. An economist and someone who, from when I was younger, was somebody that I really used to read up everything I could about him. There's not a lot of material, but there is material. And so Dennis Byron is someone who, from his record, has a gravitas, has a level of weight as not just a Caribbean jurist, but as a black man of intellect. He's globally. I mean, he was the president of the International Human Rights Commission on the Rwanda massacres for 2 terms. And he presided over 30-something judges from all over the world, including the United States and UK, etc. Now, I'd like to think that the Rwanda massacres have a little bit more importance than our electoral reform. But the point is...
A little bit?
A
lot.
So the point is that to position Sir Dennis Byron as someone who is not an independent arbiter. And I get that people are frustrated that they want to see the report, that they feel that time is passing, etc. But to kind of position him as sitting on one side or the other is a huge insult to the guy's professionalism and to his record. And I think there should be people in the media, people like Tim, who should be able to step forward, even in DNO, and when an article is being put forward, and put a byline to give a summation of his record and career, rather than just letting a story be put out that, the report is being delayed deliberately to give advantage to one side over the other. I thought that did not promote the ability for us to actually discuss this topic properly. That's my opinion. Tim?
But
Severin?
let's Sev respond, because Sev, this came from your NJAM meeting last week, and a particular person made that statement that Kenny said, and they stated basically that he was almost in collusion with the Prime Minister of Dominica, because the Prime Minister was going to call a snap election like Mia, Prime Minister of Barbados, did, and basically Sir Dennis is in collusion. So it was a preemptive strike to denigrate Sir Dennis Byron before he puts out his report, so that you can already prejudice the public to that. And certainly people have a right to do that. These are things that we've gotten accustomed to. But for a new organization like NJAM that came out specifically stating that it was not partisan, I think it's only fair to give you the opportunity, Seth, to correct that and say if this is NJAM's position, or if this is someone that has gone rogue. And what's your take on this with Sir Dennis Byron? You yourself, I know that you have been out and you've met with him. You even took heat from some people who thought that maybe you shouldn't be constructively engaging him. So you have certainly put out your record in terms of how you respect and how you're going to deal with Sir Dennis Byron in the process. But you've got an organization that you're a member of. How do you reconcile that with the organization's position with respect to Sir Dennis Byron and the tremendous work that he's been assigned to do?
First of all, on the whole question of Sir Dennis Byron and the electoral reform engagement that he has with the government, I have always taken the position, and which is the position of the organization that we just put together, that there is a chain of command as far as electoral reform in Dominica is concerned. And it actually starts at the highest level with the president who has the responsibility to appoint the Electoral Commission. Upon 2 members of the Electoral Commission supposed to be nominated by the government side, and 2 members of the and 2 members by the opposition, and the president then appoints the chairman. So our position on this one is that given the political climate, the political environment in the country, this mechanism of putting this composition of the Electoral Reform Commission, the Electoral Commission, sorry, is almost designed for confusion, that the 2 sides will stand apart, and the third one appointed by the president. And in this case, where the president is almost an extension of the cabinet, because the president was in fact a cabinet minister who resigned and then appointed to the position of cabinet. So we recommend that, as one of our recommendations is that there should be a organization. Maybe it has to go through the constitution, but a recomposition of the Electoral Commission where it can make space for a more balanced participation. Maybe 1 from government, 1 from opposition, and 2 from civil society, which is made up of church and business or whatever. Or increase the composition of the Electoral Commission to 7, where you can bring in at least some level of non-partisanship into the whole scheme of things. So this was one of the things that we recognize, that as far as the authority goes, the president is the one with the highest authority. Then the other authority is the parliament, where both sides of the parliamentarians meet and do whatever they have to do in parliament. Then the cabinet of government, then the Electoral Commission and the cabinet of ministers, that would definitely be partisan, and the people participation is in fact right down at the bottom. So when Sir Dennis Byron was appointed by the Prime Minister, we were of the opinion that it was not the best thing to do. It should have either been done by the president or by the Electoral Commission, since the Prime Minister is a direct party to benefit from whatever happens with the electoral process in Dominica. But we decided that although it was not the best thing to do, yet it was not illegal, and for that we decided to engage Sir Byron. We took some flack for it, but we had a very informed public discussion with Sir Byron, and I think it was a very frank one. After that, we had some private sessions with him, and I could tell you I have a lot of respect for Sir Dennis Byron, and I will not join anybody in denigrating him or insulting him. The only thing that we were concerned about, though, is that at the public consultation that we had sometime in June, I think it was June 17th last year, he actually promised that within 3 months he would be wrapping up the exercise, and before he actually presents his report to government or to the Electoral Commission, we're not too sure as to who he's going to report to, he would have a final consultation where he would actually present some of his findings, not to tell us what he was actually going to recommend, but at least to have, just a matter of courtesy, where he would bring in the general public to a final consultation. I'm not too sure what actually happened over the last few weeks, although I understood maybe from the article that I read from DNO that Sir Byron said that he would be submitting his report sometime in January. Is that correct, Tim? That's what I read.
Yes.
I'm not sure how sure
it's the latest of government.
So so there was some concern. I know there would be some concern as to keeping a promise. That if you promise that before you do the final report, then you would be having a final consultation, a final public consultation on the matter. And then then from the grapevine you hear that it is no longer, apparently it is, this consultation has been dispatched with. I'm not too sure, but I definitely would not be part of anybody. I will not condone anybody who actually insults the integrity of Sir Byron. We think that he was given a job to do, and he is doing the job. The only thing that we would be asking of him is to take, and we did tell him that at the consultation and in private, that remember that it is the whole question of electoral reform and electoral legislation for the Commonwealth of Dominica. It's not supposed to satisfy. It's not supposed to be the satisfaction of any side on the political scheme of things. It has to be for the benefit of the people of Dominica. And it's maybe not even for the benefit of my generation, because I see my generation disappearing very quickly. It is for the generations to come. And we did implore him that, please, Sir Byron, whatever you do, we understand that you are only submitting a report with recommendations. You're only submitting a report with recommendations, which the authorities may accept or reject. What is important after that is to put the legislation together. And this is where NJAM what NJAM has actually focused on, that with or without the report from Sir Byron with his recommendations, we actually going to go on a campaign to promote electoral reform and to start revising electoral legislation across the Commonwealth and in CARICOM, so that we can come up with the best legislation for Dominica. So this is the way we're going. But as I said, we are not going to condone any insults or anything. People who we respect the authorities of the state. And one of the things that we have, in fact, we want to get clear out there is, and if any one of you listened to the deliberations at our the launching of NJAM on the 1st of January, we stayed away from calling names of politicians and even persons in power, because we recognize that there is a difference between a political party which controls the majority in parliament and forms a government that is responsible to their supporters, to its supporters. And there is the difference with a government that is given the responsibility to govern the nation, whether you are black, green, blue, brown, or purple. And the citizenry has a right under the Constitution to criticize or applaud the government for things they do or things they fail to do. And it is on this premise that we in NJAM are actually going to operate, that we should be holding those who are responsible for governing the country to do so with a certain level of equity, fairness, and without discrimination and victimization. And this is our beef with the whole thing. As it is now, we see too much victimization and discrimination taking place in the country along political lines, where there doesn't seem to be a divide between government and the party that it represents.
Tim, I just quickly, because I know we have people trying to call in.
We're pressed for time.
So Tim, if you can give your viewpoint to this, and just before Tim says it, I just want to reiterate the initial commentary that I made is that we've gone from a period of time where we were almost totally deferential to figures of repute, people of standing, to now being almost totally destructive of them. It's good to question people of authority. There's been good changes because of that, but it is bad to predicate, in other words, to predict what their slant is going to be, what their decisions are based on an interpretation of what you think they are and their motivations are, especially someone like Sir Dennis Byron. That's just the position that I was trying to come from. So Tim, please.
Yes, Kenny, on a personal level, I agree with that, characterization of yours. On a professional level, though, we do not censor, people's opinions, and that we have particular editorial policies that if they breach, will not allow the stories to go through. But as Sam was pointing out, we can agree to disagree. We're gonna have different opinions on particular issues, but still agree to discuss those issues in a civil way. My issue with what you're talking about, Kenny, is that while DNO could not, and I think in all DNO, based on our policy, could not prevent the gentleman from expressing himself, since he did not violate any of our editorial policies. But I think we could have found a balance. What I think was lacking in our handling of this was the balance that you suggested at the beginning. And that is, while Sir Byron was being criticized, Sir Dennis was being criticized, and we chose to carry that, we should have tried to balance the story with the, if you will, something that would counteract, that information, knowing of the performance of Sir Dennis in the past, knowing the reputation that he has built in the judiciary. So we could have given the story some more balance by including some of that information, but we certainly would not have stopped the gentleman from expressing himself.
Yeah, I am against censorship myself, so I support that totally. I think you want to go to a break before calls, or do you want to start taking calls?
I just want to say, Tim, I find I was so big of Tim to say that.
Yes, very, very.
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to go to the lines, and you can give us a call. And we're back right here at 7:04 p.m. on Q95 with The Other Side. We're talking about civil discourse, civility in discourse, I should say, public discourse, to be exact. We're going to open up the lines right now. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, and 616-4257. Just remember, we're not talking about CBI. Okay, if you're overseas, you can call as well. I think it's what, 305-432-9624. Let's take the first call. Did we lose it? Uh-oh. Give us a call back, guys. I'm right here. Open to discussion about civility in public discourse. Caller, you're live. Good evening.
Good evening and happy new year to everybody.
Same to
Good
you.
evening. Happy New Year.
I'm enjoying the program as usual. But
Thank you.
I would like your comments on the outburst of our Prime Minister when he said that no law, not even the Constitution, will prevent me, Roosevelt Skerrit, from doing what I have to do. What are your comments on that, my folks? Thank you.
That's a good question. What do you think? I want to start with Sam. I just like how Sam face looking. So let's start with Sam.
Everything is context, huh? And that comment was made. First of all, that comment was an inarticulate comment for a politician to make, based on
Inarticulate.
what I'm hearing, because it didn't go over well. What was he trying to say at the time? That is the important thing. I think he was speaking in the context of within the confines of the law. He is going to. It was something to do with election to election, and it came off as if someone was trying to suggest the Constitution. But I don't think you can't be the president, the prime minister of a country, and agree to throw away the law. I don't think that's the context. But I would defer to the prime minister for an explanation of what it is that he. What it is that he
Where was the
meant
comment?
to-
Where was the comment made? Wasn't it on a political platform?
Mhm.
Yes.
So it was on a political platform, and I believe the comment was no law, no constitution can prevent me from being nominated. Is that correct?
Right.
That's the context. The context is where was the comment made? Political platform. Why was the comment being made? Because
He was
there
responding to something.
there were accusations that he should not be nominated because of his supposed status at the time. So it fit the context that he was in the political sphere on the platform. Now, it's good for that question to come with regards to what is the civility that we discuss with each other in normal domain, and how does it fall apart in the political platform? Because it does. It falls apart totally. And guys, I wish I could tell you this discussion we are having here is going to govern political campaigns. It can't and it won't. Not just here, but anywhere. We've heard what people have said in the campaigns, even in the United States and the UK, in Canada, in Europe. The fact is, the political culture has a totally different culture when it hits the platform. When it gets to the platform,
Everything goes out the door.
everything goes out the door. You could argue that you could create standards. You could have a political standards committee that talks about the level of discourse you want on the platform. But we go back for a tradition of 30, 40, 50 years where every leader from Eugenia Charles all the way coming down to people like, the deceased Swanston Carbon and, Mike Douglas, Rosie Douglas. The level of language, not just here, but across the Caribbean, has been disappointing on the platform.
But Kenny, the Brits call it the silly season, and they call it that for a reason.
Exactly.
No, we're not excusing everything that happens during silly season, but I wouldn't necessarily judge 10, 15 years down the road everything that happens based on a comment that was made on a political platform. I said, and I acknowledge that the comment, in my estimation, now this isn't speaking for Kenny, but speaking, we can't tell you any. The comment, it was an inarticulate comment, and so on. But yeah.
Caller, you're live.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Can you load on your radio, please?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm listening to you, and is there any criticism that is offensive or not offensive? Is there any criticism that is not offensive, especially to someone like Sir Dennis Byron, with all his credentials and his history and his everything behind his name? Because if Sir Byron is delayed in his report, although his report is nothing final, if he is as much as delayed, it is a reasonable criticism to say that he is delayed.
Yes.
Why? Because election will be coming, and our dear Prime Minister is going to say, "Oh, we have to pass some laws, and we cannot have electoral reform, pass all these laws, and have it instituted before election." And then the ordinary man is going to look at that and say, "You see, I told you, he was in cahoots with Garrett." He's going to think like that.
It is
You can't really
reasonable.
blame him if the Dennis Byron is going to be late with
Right.
his report.
Thank you, caller.
It is reasonable for you to challenge someone that's delayed or anything else. But when you now start to ascribe some vile motive
You mean-
for the delay, that is the problem.
You mean
caller.
you start to put out information that's not factual.
This deliberately distort and misinform to besmirch his reputation prior to him submitting. I think that there's a difference there, and that was the difference.
And you know, the caller is right. There's nothing wrong with
With saying he's
criticizing the
late.
delay.
Yeah, he's late.
You know, but again, as Sam said, to prescribe a motivation behind it and to say that he is in bed with the authorities to
Because
conjure
he
up a
got-
plan. I
People are throwing out he got $500,000, and they've tied in his consultation. I don't know whether he gets $500,000, but that is what that's reported. And again, speaking about the facts, right? So they're tying in now this reputed $500,000 that he's supposed to be getting as to why he is beholden and he's doing all of this, underhanded thing, which I just think is so unfortunate.
Caller, you're live.
Yeah, I tried to understand something. I had Sam made a statement earlier on when you were speaking about disagreeing on facts. I'd really like him to explain that to me because I don't know what
That's
he
kind of
means.
vague. You remember making a statement
Yes,
about that?
yes.
Disagreeing on
Yeah.
facts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he
Okay.
did. He did. The caller is right.
Okay, we'll answer your.
No, so hold on. So I try to understand because I know Kenny has a black shirt on him and Tim has a white. Those are facts. What you gonna disagree on?
But right now, Tim is wearing black and white.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Otherwise,
I just want to let you know that.
okay, Kenny has a black.
No, but the caller, I understand what he's
Yes,
going
I get
at.
you, caller.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, caller. I think facts should be black and white, but sometimes fundamentally the information that come out, what I'm suggesting that we accept as fact is not fact at all. Because take for instance the example that I gave that we're discussing an airline that came in that's supposed to only have 6 people. It didn't have 6 people at all, but those 6 people were established as the facts. And then we now going and we're talking about the other aspects of the airline, and someone will suggest, well, that airline, maybe it can't operate successfully down the
Instead
road
of
because
talking about the weather.
instead of talking about
the
the
weather,
real issue
the
that
weather,
happened.
that's what they
Well,
said.
let's. I can take it just for 2 minutes. Take
Sure.
it slightly further. Normally, and Tim made a point about giving information. Normally, the airlines would just say the flight is cancelled.
For operational reasons.
Yes, for operational reasons, and say nothing else. So now you're actually in a sphere where now you're really looking for the airline to clarify that yes, we actually had a full flight or half full flight rather than 6 people. That was never
That's what we
something
talked about. Like
yeah.
even if sometimes if you present the facts and the truth, it just depends on how it triggers you. You will accept it or you will not.
Yeah.
And I will still run with my story. So sometimes I know civility involves honesty as well as politeness, manners, etiquette, whatever. But I feel with the honesty aspect of it, that just doesn't matter. We've reached a point where that doesn't matter. I don't have to believe anything DNO tells me. I don't have to believe what you tell me, Kenny. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm running with what I feel like.
Yeah.
But in a way, Tim is genuinely calling persons in government to try to get information because he took his standard. He really wants to fact check and get the details,
Which is good.
Whereas someone else would say, if the information is coming from the government, I don't want to believe it anyway in the first place, Tim. And I think that is the troubling balance there. But we'll defer to the caller.
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Caller, you're live.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How you doing?
We're great.
Okay. It is very interesting that when all you started the program, you start the program by saying that people must talk the truth. And I believe that is reality. People supposed to be talking the truth. But is not too long that all you said that all you supposed to be talking the truth, and all you still on the program not talking the truth. Because all you said, Skerrit said no law, no constitution will not stop him on a political platform, and that is lie. That is not true. Skerrit was being questioned about his French citizenship, that he could not go and nominate to as a candidate for the Vikas constituency. And that is where he said, no law, or you can come with all law, yeah, all you want, but no law, no constitution will not stop Skerrit from being nominated to be a candidate for the Vikas constituency. So, I mean, how will you expect to be saying those things there in the eyes of people, in the ears of people that know exactly what happened? So why are you talking about talking the truth? Are you lying right in the face of the people? Thank you.
I find that to be a strange call because I feel like Sam said clearly he thought it was an inarticulate statement to make, right? I don't think we're talking about lies or anything. We're just talking about tone and how this statement was brought across.
That's the caller's interpretation. Okay,
you see, so there we go again. There we go again. It's best we just had to play that clip. We had to play that clip of Skerrit saying what he said.
Yeah, I think the point,
take it differently.
Tim, you want to say?
I think the point the caller was making is that, and maybe it was a sort of very narrow, interpretation of what happened, is that when Kenny said that the comment or statement was made on a political platform, and the discussion went on to suggest that politics is a little different, from the normal everyday life, and so we perhaps have to accept what happens in politics, But he's saying, well, okay, fine. That didn't happen in politics. It didn't happen on a political platform. It happened in a regular news interview where the prime minister was not politicking, So I think that's the point he was making.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you, caller. We have any more calls coming in? We have one more coming in there. Oh, we have a little time. My phone is also ringing. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. So, with regards to the statement that Roosevelt Skerrit made, where he said, when he was asked where is the Labour Party getting the money from, etc., and he cursed the people of Dominica. Sam, I want you to answer that question. What are your take on that, Sam? And I'm waiting to say
what did he
something.
say? What was he curse?
I don't.
He said,
Those don't curse on the radio, but give me the gist.
You would never know, Sam. You wouldn't know. Let me tell you.
Well, tell me. Thank you.
Where did the Labour Party get their money from?
Mm-hmm.
He tell them, go to hell. Go to hell. It's not all this damn business where Labour Party gets the money from. Sam, what is your take on that now?
That was not nice of him. That was not polite of him to do that.
That was not nice of him.
No, that was not polite. Nice. You see, at least I acknowledge that.
On another note now, I want another question.
Sure, caller, go ahead.
So earlier on, all this spoke about where freedom of information is really tight in Dominica, and not only Dominica. So over the past days, we've been hearing about the son of Roosevelt Skerrit crash a GA, which is not authorized to drive. Up till today, you have not heard nothing from the police department in Dominica with regards to that. Saying whether they're going to press charges or what. Or what is going to happen. Come on. What are your take on that, Sam? Again, Sam is the only one I want to answer this question. Good night.
But I thought we should ask Tim because Tim, did you do
this
a
is
story
pick
on
on
that?
Sam night. I have no idea.
But let's ask
I
him.
don't know if it is in fact
I
accurate.
believe this is the same guy who asked you about your
If I believe in
Yeah,
God.
if you believe in God.
and your bankruptcy.
But no, honestly, Sam has a right not to answer if he doesn't want to. But I think we should I want to ask Tim that. Tim, did you write a story on that? Did you get?
No, we didn't. We didn't. Like most people, we found out via social media because that's where.
Did you investigate?
Yeah. Well, what is happening? Yeah. Let me tell you straight, Tanya. Is we get news, I mean, police news that the police want to put out.
The
Okay?
police want to put out.
Yes. In other words, the time has passed. There was a time when you were able to call the police and obtain information on any matter, whether it was controversial or just straight police news. Nowadays, it's like pulling teeth, out to be
So
able
you
to
haven't gotten any information
get
on that.
no information. But there's a bigger
tried.
issue to that. And that is, you're not able to call the police and get information, on things that you want to write about.
Right.
They choose when they give you information. They choose what stories that they put out.
But the question remains, Tim, at what point do you see a story as being a malicious rumor that you're being forced to authenticate? And even
But is it a rumor?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because this did not originate from any official news source in Dominica. He said it originated from social media. That's the same social media.
That's where he heard about
says,
it.
Tim said
No,
he didn't hear about
Yeah, but Kenny, you must understand too that lots of news stories originate in social media.
Yes. True.
You understand?
The question is
And then the mainstream
And
news.
even before social media, it was resonating from grassroots. Someone, and you would hear somebody
Exactly.
go that way.
Right.
So I don't think we should just say the story's a rumor.
Exactly.
We
Well,
should
I mean,
investigate.
until proven, it is a rumor. But until you've done your reporting and confirmed
And
it,
that makes
it
me
is a
think,
rumor.
why can't we, even though okay, so it's that it's a rumor, why is it that certain authorities or people who would have this information not just come out and clarify? Why let us run with this thing and make up a set of what we call cock and bull story?
Well, remember, we've been there before. Huh? There's that fine line, and Tim will know this from journalism. Several will
Just
also
tell
know
us,
this.
communicate.
Sometimes when you discuss something that is not true, you make it true just by denying it or discussing it. So you have to be careful. And Tim, I'm sure, has that all the time. He has.
But the point here, Kenny, is not so much taking something off social media or off Radio Neg and running with it as a story. That's wrong. I mean, from a journalistic standpoint. But the problem is when you get that information and you try to have it verified or confirmed,
Exactly.
you're not getting any responses from the appropriate authority.
And that makes the situation worse.
Tim, we take your point. You made it, and it's good. I think that you made the point clearly here tonight that you would like to have a partner in government that is more forthcoming with information when respected media call them.
Government.
No, but I think
overall,
but certainly in government and governmental agencies,
police.
And that's certainly something that we can do more. But you also, too, I know for a fact, some police departments cannot give you all the information you're looking at because they have an active investigation going on, and sometimes you can't put the cart before the horse. Sometimes it's a matter of national security and there are issues there and so on and so forth. So I guess you're correct in terms of more information, but we all acknowledge that not just Dominica, all police departments, you have this thing between the newspapers and the media people and trying to get more information and sensitive and police not being forthcoming with certain sensitive information. I'm not making an excuse for it, but I'm just saying there's a balance. But we take your point in that it would be good for the government or agencies of the government to be more forthcoming with information to minimize the rumors, and I can't argue with that.
Yeah,
I saw another call, but I don't see anything coming in.
Sever's
right
raising
now.
his hand.
Yes, Savran, do you have something to say, Mr. Savran?
Yeah. The whole thing about it is what we have seen over the years is a dearth in information sharing. Where, for example, it's very difficult to be able to get access to government officials for information. And in fact, there seems to be a pattern where even government ministers do not acknowledge receipt of invitations to functions where they may be in a situation where they can have a discussion. So we have this situation where there is not much discussion taking place in the country, where the people who have the facts and the information, can disseminate it. And I think the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and the information part of it is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
We are going on 2 years right now with COVID, where we have not been able to sit down and have an honest, open discussion on the pandemic.
Right.
You know, what we have had over the months is presentations. They come and they have a presentation, no questions asked, and
Right.
this is the information, and you're supposed to swallow it.
Several days a call.
And they disappear.
We want to get it in before the program closes. Go on.
Caller, you're live.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good afternoon. Nice program. Although it's on the other side, but it's a good program.
That's the best joke,
But Tanya,
boy.
listen to me, right? Civility, as Tim rightly said, and if you recall, I said that sometimes on one of your earlier programs. Civility must start with truth. Now, to establish truth, you need facts. And in Dominica, I heard Kenny saying, oh, that happened everywhere. But in Dominica, it is unique, it's special. The facts, we don't get the facts. For example, there's something going on at Public Works. That's the people business. That's the people own. And we're learning that it's sold. We don't know who it's sold to. So people will speculate and say what they want on social media because those people are responsible for giving the information. They don't want to give you the truth and the facts because it will hurt them. Another example is Choxy. Choxy was in Dominica 3-4 days. And when Dominican find out it start going on social media, that is when this authority, those that are responsible for the information, come out. You know what I mean? So if you want civility, you have to be honest. You have to treat people equal. You have to stop your victimization and deal with people fairly. Because we are not stupid. We will listen and we will make our own judgment. Yes, everybody has the opinion, but everybody cannot have the facts. And the facts based on information. And if we are not getting the information, you're going to have this confusion. But Tim, big up. This is Leroy Schilling for Bob Marley Tim. You know, I love your work, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller. I
Thank you,
think we're
caller.
gonna have to. We can't even respond to that, but I think it was a nice closing in terms of civility. And we're gonna have to wrap it up now because we have another program coming on.
Yes, I think thank you for everyone. I think just the tone of even the calls suggests that people are buying into the fact that you can agree and disagree, except we're still not sure whether Sam is a heathen. We're not sure whether Sam is a
At least they
heathen.
didn't call you an eye thieves tonight, so at least we're getting better.
I think I should say, people definitely agree we need the civility, but we cannot be civil without the honesty. And that's what is lacking right now. That is lacking, and the ability to communicate is lacking. You just leave us there to think what we want and run along with a story. You cannot do that.
But even
You
when
need to communicate.
even when the honesty is when you tell someone what the facts of a matter
They
is
still
and
run
they
with what-
disagree with what you do,
They don't like the
perception-
facts.
they don't like it.
But if the fact is you're still being a bigger person, do the right thing and communicate, disseminate
of
the
course.
information,
Yes,
and that's what is important. Yes, let's wrap that up, huh?
Thank you, Sevra. Thank you, Sevra, for your
And
comments
thank
your
you, Mr.
contribution.
Durand.
I'll
Yes.
send a-
Tim, thank you
I'll
so
send
much.
a bill to you all guys
What's
to
the
bring
surname,
some
Tanya?
civility to this
I'm a
discussion.
Dixon. I'm a Dixon.
Dixon, okay. When I meet you next, I'll call you Miss Dixon, all right?
No,
Or
no,
Miss-
no. Call me Tanya. Call me
Exactly.
Tanya.
So call me Tim.
Okay, Tim. All
Yeah.
right.
Sam, I
We have
will
to
send
brush
you a
through
bill for
one
bringing
Tanya,
some
you know.
civility to your program tonight, yeah?
Yes, you do. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. It was nice, people. We'll do it again next week. Same time, same place. Q95, the big station.
The Global View on Q, the big station.